This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Susie Garrett.
So close. The Dow Jones Industrial Average hits an intraday record, and the S&P closes above 2,000. But if you missed the rally, there are still a few stocks that one market watcher says are worth buying. Teaming up, Merck and Pfizer, two fierce competitors, are now partners with a common goal: combating a certain type of cancer. And to-do list. As the kids head back to school, we have a checklist of do's and don'ts for your portfolio, whether you're 20, 40, or 60. We have all that and more tonight on Nightly Business Report for Tuesday, August 26th. Good evening, everyone. I'm Susie Garrett. Tyler's off tonight. Well, Wall Street doesn't usually get excited about a two-point move in stocks, but today was different and historic. It took just a two-point gain for the S&P 500 index to cross and close above the 2,000 level, its 30th record so far this year. There was some euphoria about the Dow as well. The blue chip average hit a record high of 17,153 in intraday trading, but pulled back by the close. Some good economic news helped fuel today's gains. Consumer confidence rose more than expected this month, climbing to its highest level since 2007. Also driving stocks, an unusually high number for big ticket orders called durable goods. Those orders jumped last month more than 22%, but that was skewed by international demand for aircraft and record orders. Here's a look at today's closing digits. The Dow added 30 points, the Nasdaq up 13, and the S&P edged up 2 points to that new milestone, 2,000.02. Our guest watched every move of the S&P today. After all, Erin Gibbs is the Equity Chief Investment Officer with S&P Capital IQ, and she joins us now. Erin, so nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
All right, so it looks like the S&P 500 index is on track for its best August since the year 2000, so 14 years. How do you see things going between now and the end of the year? The S&P is now at 2,000. Do you see it going higher, going down, or just stay the same?
I really expect it to about stay the same for the rest of the year. It's somewhat dependent on the Federal Reserve. If right now Wall Street is expecting the Federal Reserve to raise rates around the second quarter of next year, if they decide to or indicate that they're going to raise rates earlier in 2015, we could see a bit of a correction starting at the end of this year.
Because that is the question that a lot of people are wondering now that it's gotten this high. Yeah. Is it time, that we're going to see a correction? What are the chances of that happening, you think?
It's really dependent on the Federal Reserve, and that's dependent on wage growth and indications of inflations. But overall, the S&P looks very good. Earnings and fundamentals are very strong, and we're getting close to the top of valuation range. We're getting a little pricey. So I think our appreciation for the rest of the year is somewhat limited.
Well, that's exactly the point that many individual investors are like kicking themselves saying, why didn't I put in money sooner? We have the S&P up 8.5% so far this year, and they're wondering, is it gotten too expensive and it's too late for me to get in? Now, you say there's still a couple of stock areas where investors can make some money for the rest of this year and beyond. One category that you've identified, you call retailers in transition. Which is the retailer that you're recommending most right now?
So one of the retailers that I like that is definitely a value play. It's trading at only what we call 13 and a half times forward earnings, which is basically just a lot cheaper than everybody else, a lot cheaper than its peers, is Fossil Group. It sells watches, and it's been struggling this year as it transitions to more online sales, as well as issuing new product lines. They're doing a lot of watches with designers like Michael Kors and Tory Burch. They're also issuing some, looking at new smartphone watches. Okay. And so this has come with some increased costs, but we're looking for that growth to really ramp up next year.
Another category that you have, this next group, you call high-quality winners that have been returning cash to investors, and you talk about Apple. Now, here's a stock that is trading at a new record high. Why Apple?
So one, Apple is a stock that you can buy, and I don't necessarily advocate market timing. That's very difficult to do. Apple, you can just buy at any time. They offer about a 2% dividend yield, as well as returning about 5% in share buybacks. So overall, you get about 7% of the price of the stock returned to you in cash that Apple buys back in stock and dividends. It's also very high quality. It has a very strong balance sheet. It has lots of cash, which means that it can acquire other companies very easily, just like it recently bought Beat Electronics. So it can get growth through those acquisitions.
I'm going to jump in because I want to squeeze in the last one, an area that you call industrials with free cash flow. And you say airlines fit this. Southwest Airlines, LUV is the ticker symbol there. Can you just give one or two reasons why you like this?
Really strong balance sheet, great free cash flows, one of the best balance sheets out of all the airlines, and their acquisition of AirTran has really helped them grow.
All right, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on the program. Aaron Gibbs of S&P Capital IQ. Two major drug companies, arch competitors, and also Dow Components, they're teaming up. Pfizer and Merck have agreed to work together to test a new combination cancer therapy. Investors pushed Pfizer shares up 1%, making it the best performing stock on the blue chip index. Merck's rose a fraction of 1%. Meg Terrell has all the details.
They're some of the biggest names in pharmaceuticals, Pfizer and Merck. Often rivals, they're coming together now to battle cancer. The companies said today they plan to collaborate to test two drugs in combination, Pfizer's Xalkori and Merck's pembrolizumab.
As the scientific community learns more about cancer, I think they're finding new ways to treat cancer, and a lot of it has to do with combination therapy. The combination therapy allows drugs to work on multiple mechanisms of action so that they can have a more effective way of treating the cancer over the long term.
Pfizer's drug is approved to treat certain forms of lung cancer. It's a targeted therapy aiming at a genetic mutation thought to drive the disease. Merck's therapy is under review now at the FDA. It's in a new class called immunotherapies, drugs that harness the immune system to fight cancer. It's also known by its target, PD-1.
PD-1 is a molecule found relatively recently that seems to tamp down immune responses. And so if you block it, under circumstances where there's an immune response already there directed against the tumor, if you block that, then you can now reveal that immune response, and the effects can be quite dramatic.
The burgeoning field of immunotherapy drugs also means big business. Morningstar analyst Damian Conover estimates Merck's therapy could draw $5 billion in annual revenue. And other drugs from Bristol Myers, AstraZeneca, and Roche, he says, could bring the market to almost $20 billion. Merck and Pfizer are building on collaborations already in place on two other Pfizer therapies and the same Merck compound.
The results that we have seen with PD-1 blockade are so remarkable. My view was that we needed to do everything that we could to understand that for the benefit of cancer patients around the world.
Roger Perlmutter, president of Merck Research Laboratories, told us that after learning how the drug works on its own, combinations are the future for this technology.
If we can understand how best to use this therapy, we'll be able to add to that other therapies, not only those that we've developed, but those that we can identify that other people have developed, where we can partner with them or acquire those therapies. I think the opportunities are enormous.
The hope is that in fighting cancer, two drugs are better than one. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Meg Terrell.
Best Buy didn't live up to its name. It posted another disappointing quarter, the third in a row. The largest U.S. specialty consumer electronics retailer reported lower than expected revenue, down 4%. Best Buy also expects continued softness in mobile phone sales until the newest models come out. But the company's profit did beat estimates thanks to cost cutting and better online electronic sales. But that wasn't enough to help its shares, which dropped almost 7% today. Best Buy also echoed a theme repeated by many other retailers recently. More and more customers are buying online. So how do old-line companies get more foot traffic into their brick-and-mortar stores? Courtney Reagan tells us about some ideas which seem to be working.
Traffic. For most of us, it's a hassle. For retailers, it's the holy grail. Just getting shoppers in the store has become a feat. While many retailers say a sale on their website is just as good, a sale in their stores is technically more valuable because the high overhead cost of operating a store fleet. Still, retailers are learning online and mobile presence must be as strong as the experience in store. The web used to be feared by retail, but now it's not only embraced, it's depended on. According to ComScore, nearly 3 in 4 mobile shopping searches resulted in consumers making a purchase in store. So when it comes to driving traffic, retailers are looking to the web and mobile to get consumers to shop in store.
The good news for retailers, and why we continue to see sales improve year over year, is that what's coming into the store is actually a high value proposition. Somebody who's already researched the information, has a good idea what they want to buy, and then they're coming to the stores to execute the purchase.
Best Buy CEO Hubert Joly tells me shoppers are browsing online first, so their trips to the store are more targeted, which means store traffic is going down, but converting trips to sales is going up. Target has seen huge growth rates for Cartwheel, its app that offers discounts and coupons for consumers on mobile devices or through Facebook, but requires in-store purchasing. Nordstrom's acquisition of online flash sale site Haute Look is driving traffic to its stores. The department store says shoppers are returning online purchased Haute Look items to Nordstrom Rack stores, noting Haute Look is, quote, a tremendous traffic driver for our Rack stores. JCPenney says its website sales growth comes in part from .com orders originating in the stores. With 30% of Penny's online business pick up in store, the possibility of shoppers grabbing a couple more items while there increases. While e-commerce browsing is driving consumers to stores, promotions remain tops when it comes to driving traffic. Macy's CFO Karen Hoguet recently acknowledged the department store sees less traffic when offering fewer promotions. And it's a retailer analysts mark as best in class when it comes to its website and in-store offerings. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Courtney Reagan.
When it comes to shoes, foot traffic has a whole different meaning, and discount shoe retailer DSW seems to understand it. Second quarter profit rose a better than expected 1.8% as net sales and same-store sales increased. DSW also raised both ends of its full-year earnings guidance by 5 cents a share, although it predicts flattish same-store sales. Shares jumped 9% to $30.99. And still ahead on the program, the home of the Whopper moves to Canada, and moving with Burger King, one of the most respected investors of all time. We'll explain. Burger King made it official today. It'll buy Canadian donut chain Tim Hortons for about $11 billion. The new fast food giant will be based in Canada, where the corporate tax rate is less than here in the U.S. Now, in an unusual twist, Warren Buffett and his Berkshire Hathaway will provide about 25% of the financing. In a complicated deal, the legendary investor is expected to buy preferred shares. So as a result, the U.S. will actually receive more taxes rather than less, because Berkshire will have to pay full and higher U.S. taxes on the dividends it earns from the Canadian and foreign parent company. Now, as we told you last night, Amazon is making a major move into the lucrative video game business. The internet giant is buying Twitch for almost $1 billion in cash, one of Amazon's biggest acquisitions ever. Julia Borston explains why Amazon was eager to snap it up.
Twitch, a platform where people go online to watch others play video games, has been called the ESPN of the future because of the surge in interest in watching gameplay. Here's what Twitch co-founder Justin Kan said in June.
Over 1 million people broadcast gaming every month. We have over on average, the engagement around that content is extremely high. We have about 45 million people who tune in around the world to the content. And that equals about 13 billion minutes of video watched every month. So the engagement on a per user basis is really high. People are tuning in every day for over an hour.
Twitch's sale to Amazon comes after Google and Yahoo both showed interest in the company. Though Amazon will run the 3-year-old startup as an independent subsidiary in San Francisco, it accelerates the internet giant's push into video games and web video. Amazon has been hiring more gaming programmers and is promoting new games in the video game controller it sells for its Fire TV set-top box. Now it has a direct line to gamers to sell the latest games and consoles. Twitch investor Ethan Kurzweil says Amazon will help bring Twitch to the next level.
I think it's showing their aspirations to be in live entertainment as well. It's hard for me to predict exactly what the future holds. I know the Twitch team has some very big plans, and I'd expect under Amazon's care that's only going to speed up. They're only going to go faster.
Twitch could also help Amazon grow its online advertising business, since it reaches the young male demographic that's so hard for advertisers to reach, helping Twitch charge much higher prices for its ads. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Julia Borston in Los Angeles.
Orbitz has a falling out with a major airline, and that's where we begin tonight's market focus. American Airlines said it's withdrawing its flights from the travel website, saying it was unable to reach agreement on a long-term contract. U.S. Airways, which is also owned by American, will withdraw its fares on September 1st, but American flights were already pulled. Shares tumbled more than 4.5% to $8.04. Movado posted an earnings miss on both the top and bottom lines. Despite the disappointing results, the watchmaker does say it expects sales to accelerate in the second half of the year. It also reaffirmed its full-year forecast. Still, the stock fell almost 8% to $40.64. And Inc. spiked in today's session on a Reuters report that it hired J.P. Morgan to explore a possible sale. Now, you'll recall that we told you last night that 2 activist investors are urging the company, which owns Ann Taylor, to explore strategic alternatives, including putting itself up for sale. The stock popped nearly 5% to $41.87. Well, drones could be making a debut at Disney World. Walt Disney has filed 3 drone-related patents that it says could lead to an era of aerial movie screens and puppets flying through the sky. These drone-powered air shows could be an alternative to the fireworks and light shows at the company's theme parks. Shares were off slightly to $90 and change. After the bell today, TiVo reported earnings that beat on strong subscriber growth, but its revenue and guidance were disappointing. Also in that report, the company announced a $350 million share buyback program. Separately, TiVo says that it's introducing a new DVR for customers without cable or satellite TV. The device would record both over-the-air broadcasts and streaming online networks. After the report, shares were volatile. During the regular session, the stock was up 2% to $13.90. And Smith & Wesson reported earnings that beat by 1 penny, but its sales were below forecasts on weaker demand for its guns. Its third quarter and full-year guidance also came in below estimates. Shares initially plunged after hours. During the regular session, the stock was off just slightly at $13.10. Looks like American consumers are doing a better job of paying credit card bills on time. TransUnion, the credit reporting agency, says the rate of payments at least 90 days overdue fell to the lowest level in at least 7 years. That good news comes as consumers are using their credit cards more and charging more. Well, a week from today, kids head back to school and most Americans return to work. September is a time when everyone, no matter how old you are, buckles down and gets serious about business and financial issues. So let's turn to financial planner Tim Maurer for some of the ABCs of smart investment moves. He's with BAM Alliance. Tim, we always know that whenever the market is doing well and hitting these records that we were just reporting, people get both excited, but then they get very nervous that, am I making the right moves with my investment portfolio and everything that I should be doing with my life? And this is one of those times. It also coincides with the end of summer. So we want to turn to you for some of the to-do list of what people should be doing. And as we've learned from you, one size does not fit all. So we've broken it up into a couple of age categories, starting with the millennials. What should millennials, these are people in their 20s, what should they be doing right now? What's on their checklist?
Well, Susie, you know, everybody wants to tell the millennials what to do, and there's a lot of apathy reported out there, a sense of entitlement. I got to be honest with you, having taught millennials for several years, I really enjoy working with them. And here's one piece of advice that I would recommend. They may have heard that you're supposed to get yourself established and go out and buy a house. Well, as a generation, millennials especially really crave freedom and flexibility. So I suggest that they not necessarily go out and tie themselves down geographically with that big asset and presumably the mortgage to go along with it. I think it's probably best that they find their direction first and then make that major purchase. That said, I do think millennials should be stocking up on those retirement plans of tax-qualified dollars to reduce their taxable income, but also to get that savings for retirement going before they get a little bit older, get themselves established, have a high mortgage, have a couple of kids that they have to pay for. I think it makes a lot of sense to save early for millennials especially.
And so you're talking about like 401k, something like that, and putting in what? Stocks pretty much in those retirement funds, right?
Well, that's the expectation, Susie, is that you're young, you should be putting everything into stocks because you can afford to ride it out. Unfortunately, nobody likes losing money depending on, no matter how old they are. So I actually do recommend that millennials have some fixed income in their portfolio because many of the generation before them got hammered in 2008 and they didn't want to go back for many years.
Let's move on to the next group, and these are the Gen Xers, X and Ys, who are in that group where they maybe are married, they do have kids, they're in their 30s, maybe 40s. What's your advice there? What should they be making now?
Susie, 30 and 40-somethings have one primary recommendation that they need to hear. If you do not have a will that stipulates the guardianship, the trustee for your minor children, that is the most important financial planning recommendation right now. Forget 401k, forget everything else. Go right out, find an estate planning attorney, and draft a will, because otherwise, heaven forbid, you and your spouse go down with the ship. It's the state who is going to decide who is your parent, who's the new parent of that child.
Okay.
Life insurance is another big one, Susie, that I want to mention. It is very important because at this stage of the game, if something happens to income earners, they're going to need, the household's going to need an influx of cash. You don't have to do anything crazy. I don't recommend permanent life insurance for folks in this situation. I think 15 times of your income in 20 to 30-year term is going to get the job done for most folks.
Okay, let's move on to what you're calling the empty nesters. So these are people maybe in their 50s, 60s. They've already gotten their kids through college. Their kids are married and grown up. What should they be doing right now?
Hopefully the kids are married, grown up, out of the house, at least past college, right? The most expensive time for parents is putting kids through college. Thereafter, the empty nesters, in most cases, are going to need to backfill their retirement funding that they weren't able to fully max out while they had the kids at home. So here's where I recommend maxing out that 401k, that $17,500 per person per year. And if you're over 50, add on another $5,500 per year for those folks in order to back in their retirement planning.
Real quickly, in a few words, what's the most common mistake that any one of these investment groups do, these demo groups?
I think that the biggest mistake any of us make at any age is to do anything drastic, especially when we're looking at market highs. Everybody's thinking, oh no, I should have gotten in earlier. Maybe I should get out now. I recommend balance throughout our lifetimes, shifting more and more toward conservatism as we age. That way, no matter what happens, your portfolio will be ready to handle it.
Okay. I feel like I got a huge homework assignment. So you've given us a lot to think about. Thanks so much, Tim. Tim Morrow of BAM Alliance. And still ahead, what happens when farmers are up to their ears in corn? The answer may be one farm equipment companies don't want to hear. That's coming up. Poultry producer Sanderson Farms missed earnings estimates in its third quarter. Profits and sales were both lower than expected. Sanderson says it processed less fresh poultry than it forecast last spring because fewer birds hatched. And the chickens which did hatch weighed less. Shares today were down nearly 6% to $89.79. Meanwhile, down on the farm, they're getting too much of a good thing. Good weather has led to a bumper crop of corn, and that's what many are talking about at the nation's largest outdoor farm show in Iowa. But as Jane Wells reports, for farmers, having too much of a good thing is costing them.
Carol Miller is checking her corn.
It's getting closer to being mature.
That means it's also getting closer to harvest, which is expected to set a record. More than 14 billion bushels of corn may be produced in the U.S. this year, a lot more than when we first met Miller 2 years ago in the middle of the worst Midwest drought in half a century.
We probably are going to lose 20 to 40% on something like this.
That was 2012, and now?
Now you have too much corn.
I can never say too much.
There is so much corn coming that prices have collapsed to lows not seen in years. Some suggest corn is now selling at below break-even levels.
And that means farmers are going to cut back on their spending. Equipment makers at the massive Farm Progress Show in Iowa this week are figuring out how they're going to weather a downturn which some analysts say could last years.
I think we're going to see it across the whole ag value chain. Farmers are going to be looking at ways to cut costs, whether that's in fertilizer or other inputs.
Deere is laying off over 1,000 manufacturing workers, and rivals hope to grow by taking business from each other and by offering more software services to help farmers measure growth and improve profitability.
I wouldn't call what's going on right now in the agricultural industry anything like a catastrophic downturn. It's a mild downturn. In fact, if you look at recent history, we're still going to have farm income levels well above the 10-year average.
This is one that is fully mature.
Carol Miller was thinking about buying a combine, a used one, but she's holding back until she sees how the harvest goes.
It looks like a good year. But then again, we won't know till we get the combine in the field and get going.
For Nightly Business Report, Jane Wells, Boone, Iowa.
To read more about this year's potentially record-setting corn harvest and its impact on farmers, go to our website, nbr.com. And that's Nightly Business Report for tonight. I'm Susie Garib. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening. We'll see you tomorrow night. I'm Susie Garib with the Nightly Business Report News Brief. An historic and exciting day on Wall Street. It took just a 2-point gain for the S&P 500 index to close above the 2,000 level. The Dow also hit a record high in intraday trading, but pulled back by the close. Helping to fuel the market were higher consumer confidence numbers and a 22% jump in orders for big-ticket items. The Dow added 30 points, the Nasdaq up 13, and the S&P edged up 2 points to hit 2,000.02. Best Buy failed to live up to its name. It reported lower than expected quarterly sales. And Burger King is officially buying Canadian donut chain Tim Hortons for about $11 billion and moving to Canada. Berkshire Hathaway's legendary Warren Buffett will provide about 25% of the financing. Be sure to tune into Nightly Business Report right here on your public television station.